then. I hope you enjoyed your short break. Certainly well earned. It's a lot to take in, and I know that. What I'd like to do now is just really look at why are there individual differences in the first place then. And what we're going to look at is called the different theories then of achievement motivation. If we consider achievement motivation and competitiveness. Well, achievement motivation refers to a person's efforts to master a task, achieve excellence, overcome obstacles, perform better than others, and take pride in exercising talent. And there's a quote there from Murray, and that goes right back to 1938, so quite an old quote, okay? If we look at competitiveness, what's this then? Well, we can say that this is the desire to compete and strive for success in sport. We can place achievement behaviour in a competitive context. Within that context, social evaluation will be a key component. Social evaluation then, what's that? A quick task for you, okay? What do you think we mean by social evaluation? Please think about this from a football perspective if it helps, okay? It's great to do that all the way through the things we do, of course. Let's put it into a context that we understand and one that we're interested in. So please try to come up with some real life examples of social evaluation in football. I wonder what you've come up with. I've got some information, of course, and I'm just going to go through that now and share that with you. As always, feel free to mix and match any of my information with anything that's valuable that you've come up with yourselves. Social evaluation then. Well, social evaluation, it has a very powerful influence in all sports, especially for top-class performers and players. In football, we could say Cristiano Ronaldo, of course, Gareth Bale, and so on. These guys, well, their performances are really closely scrutinised by the mass media and others. But let's pay particular attention to the mass media. It's important to remember that individual sports, however, do tend to be more evaluative than a team sport like football. Because in football, for example, responsibility for performance and outcome can be shared amongst the team. But, and this is a crucial one, I'm sure we are all able to think of examples of players being singled out for bad team performances. Some of you may be a little bit too young to remember this, but I'm sure you've heard of what happened to David Beckham in the World Cup in 1998, where the mass media, for example, and a lot of people in the general public, they blame Beckham and his perceived mistake where he kicked out at Simeone, the foul, and he was sent off. They blamed him for England's poor performance in that tournament and their exit from the tournament. I mentioned Cristiano Ronaldo and Gareth Bale there. Both of them play for Real Madrid, of course, at the moment. Please consider, for example, and maybe do a little bit of research and look at this, how the media, and particularly the newspapers and the television in Spain, how they evaluate players, how they treat those players, okay? I think you'll find it's much more intense than even the scrutiny they come under in the UK, for example. So that's something to consider. And it can have an effect on motivation. Again, we're looking at achievement motivation. You might be thinking, okay, he's talking about this a lot. Why? Why is it important? Why are we doing this? Well, by understanding why motivational differences occur in people and athletes and football players, we can intervene in a positive way. We can make changes that are going to help them. So it's really good to understand how motivation influences behaviours, thoughts, and also feelings. Let's just go through some ideas I've got there, okay? The choice of activity, for example. Do players tend to seek out opponents of equal ability or those with greater or lesser ability? Have a think about that yourselves, maybe players you work with. Do some players tend to go and compete against someone who they perceive to be weaker, for example? I like to look as well at the effort to pursue those goals. How often do these people practice? Again, you can think of players that you work with. Do they turn up regularly? Is their performance quite sporadic? Is their attendance quite sporadic? By that I mean, are they always there? Are they consistent, I should say? Or do they turn up once a week and then maybe you don't see them for another month? I certainly know people like that who I've been involved with as a coach. I'd also like to consider the intensity of effort in pursuing goals. Now, that intensity is a little bit different. Don't get confused with this one. It's not how often they turn up, but it's really how consistently hard they try during a practice session. It's the intensity they put in. It's the effort they put in at that session when they're there. You may hear a saying, for example, I hear it quite a lot, we say, you put a shift in tonight. And that's what I'm talking about there. Someone who's done a good job, who's worked hard in training. We'd like to look at that. Also, we'd like to look at the player's persistence in the face of failure and adversity. So, for example, the old saying, okay, when the going gets tough, what do? Do they work harder or do they take it easier? You might say that a player needs to have, in the words of Ian Holloway, I believe it was, that bounce back ability. When things go wrong, they can bounce back in and they can keep going. So that's something for you to consider. Very much there in a football context. So I hope that helps you to sort of understand what we're looking at here. Of course, I'm sure you'll be quite happy for me to talk about people like Ian Holloway and their sort of ideas regarding their sort of very special brand of sports psychology that he has and other managers. But crucially for us, we need to look at the theories, okay? We need to look at what underpins these ideas that we talk about. So we are going to consider now some theories of achievement motivation. We're going to look at need achievement theory. We're also going to look at attribution theory. And finally, we're going to look at achievement goal theory. What we'll do, we'll take some time to look at each of these in a little bit more detail, okay? Because they are quite complex. The first one then, that's need achievement theory. And this comes from some psychologists called McClelland and Atkinson, okay? It's also known as the McClelland-Atkinson theory. And this dates back, right back to 1953, even before I was born. And this achievement motivation theory is, it's one of the most highly cited theories of motivation in contemporary psychology. This theory was proposed as the result of the research that McClelland and Atkinson carried out, focusing on motivators for cognitive processes, okay? Thinking processes, such as the expected or perceived value of the results of an action. If I do something, what will I get out of it, basically, okay? And that's what the research was on. It took an interactional view, there were lots of different factors, and it considered both personal and situational factors as important predictors of behaviour. There are 5 components that make up the theory: personality factors or motives, situational factors, resultant tendencies, emotional reactions, and finally achievement-related behaviours. There is a diagram. I'd like you to pay attention to that diagram and really take a good look at it, okay?